All right, let's get right into it. Today we're talking about RVs, but we're not talking about beautiful sunsets and the freedom of the open road. Now, we're going to dig into something way more fundamental, something that might just be a crack in the very system that identifies these vehicles.
You know it, right? That long string of 17 characters? The Vehicle Identification Number, or VIN. It's basically the birth certificate for your car, your truck, and yes, your RV. It's a number we all just trust.
But what if, and this is a big what if that number, the very thing that gives your RV its legal identity, was based on, let's say, a shaky interpretation of the rules? Now that is the mystery we're unpacking today.
To get our heads around this, we first need to look at a major disconnect. It's kind of a regulatory blind spot, and it sits right at the heart of the entire RV industry.
This slide right here really nails the central conflict. On the one hand, you've got the dream, right? The RV as your home on wheels. But on the other side, you have the cold, hard reality of federal law, which is crystal clear. An RV is a motor vehicle. It is not legally a house.
And in fact, the industry's own standards, things like NFPA 1192 and ANSI A119.5, they define RVs in exactly this way. Now, you really got to pay attention to those two words, temporary and seasonal. That distinction, it is absolutely everything.
Okay, so to really get why this is so tangled, you got to meet the main players in this whole regulatory drama. There are three big ones you need to know about.
First up, you've got NHTSA. Think of them as the top cops for everything on the highway. They literally write the rule book, the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, that every single motor vehicle has to follow. No exceptions.
Then there's the RVIA, the RV Industry Association. They represent the industry itself. They create their own set of standards, and their members agreed to follow them to get that little RVIA CL you see plastered on the side of so many rigs.
And finally, we have HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Their job is to regulate housing, specifically manufactured homes. But, and this is so important, they have a specific rule that exempts RVs, basically saying whatever those things are, they're not houses, so they're not our problem.
So, a highway regulator, an industry group, and a housing authority. Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Well, here is where the messaging starts to get, let's just say, a little bit fuzzy.
I mean, check this out. This is a direct statement from the RVIA. It's clear as day. They say RVs are motor vehicles regulated by NHTSA and must comply with federal safety standards. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. Here's the catch. When they talk about these applicable standards, they'll list things like tires and lights. But what often seems to be left out of the conversation are two of the most basic, foundational rules from NHTSA. Part 565, the law that dictates how a legal VIN is even created, and Part 566, which says every vehicle maker has to register with the government.
And it gets even weirder. This line is from one of the industry's own standards. Just look at how it's phrased, that do not comply with. It reads as if complying with federal law is somehow optional, like a manufacturer could just choose not to. So you're probably asking, how is that even possible? Well, the answer comes when you connect the dots between two of our key players. And folks, this is the real aha moment in this whole story.
Think of it like a chain reaction, a set of regulatory dominoes. A manufacturer certifies their RV under an industry standard. That certification is then used to prove to HUD that it's not a house, which gets them the exemption they want. But here's the kicker. By doing that, they have just legally declared to the world that it is a vehicle. And that should automatically trigger full compliance with all of NHTSA's rules, including the ones for VINs and registration.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. HUD itself has put it in black and white, stating very clearly that using a voluntary industry standard does not give anyone a free pass to ignore federal law. You just can't do it.
I know. This is a ton of regulatory alphabet soup, right? You're probably sitting there thinking, so what? Why does any of this matter to me and my RV? Well, let me tell you, it matters a whole lot.
Because here's the bottom line. Federal law isn't an all-you-can-eat buffet, where manufacturers can just pick the tasty parts they like and ignore the rest. It doesn't work that way. These rules are mandatory for a reason.
And when these bedrock rules aren't followed to the letter, the consequences for you, the owner, can be huge. We're talking about improperly issued VINs that can cause massive headaches when you try to title or register your vehicle. It could mean your manufacturer isn't even properly registered with the government.
that can create all sorts of insurance problems. And most importantly, if they're not in NHTSA's system correctly, you could completely miss a critical, life-saving safety recall.
So, when you boil it all down, the problem really isn't that the federal rules are confusing. They're not. They're actually pretty darn clear. The confusion seems to come from communication that's been, well, selective.
And all of this leaves every RV owner out there with one final, really important question they should be asking. That VIN is on your title, your registration, your insurance. But is it truly built on the solid legal foundation you think it is?